Hey everyone, welcome to the Kimberly Guilfoyle Show, live on Rumble, where facts come first and where news is done right. So much big breaking news to cover today, including the latest reporting on the investigation into Hunter Biden. Just the News founder and investigative reporter John Solomon will be here, along with former acting director of national intelligence and former ambassador to Germany, Rick Grenell. And later on in the show, MAGA firebrand Congressman Matt Gaetz will be here to lay out his mission to audit the Biden administration's actions in Ukraine, and you don't want to miss it. But we lead off today with a Biden border crisis that is only going from bad to worse. Because with Title 42 border protection set to expire later this month, a surge of illegal migrants are expected to flood the border, making an already out of control disaster even more intense. Since Biden took office, over 6.3 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border. And it's getting so bad and so undeniable that even Biden's allies in the media are being forced to cover it. Just listen to NBC's Chuck Todd. Watch.
Biden formally runs for a second term. The immigration issue, which he never mentioned this week in his announcement video, continues to be one of his toughest challenges. In 2021, more migrants crossed the southern border than in any year since at least 1960. And in 2022, the record was broken again.
But of course, don't expect Biden to have much to say about any of it. At this weekend's White House Correspondents' Dinner, he mocked the press right to their face about how he doesn't even like to take their questions. Take a look.
This dinner sums up my first 2 years in office. I'll talk for 10 minutes, take 0 questions, and cheerfully walk away.
But we know why Biden doesn't take questions. It's because he can't defend his record or answer those questions, quite frankly, and he can't defend his policies, and he can't even string together a sentence long enough to even deliver a coherent answer. And the efforts to protect these imploding aspects of his presidency are more obvious than ever. And according to a recent report from John Solomon, House Oversight Chairman James Comer is concerned that the Justice Department has tailored its criminal probe so narrowly against Hunter Biden that it looks like an all-out effort to protect the Biden family. And as Comer also laid out, witnesses are terrified to come forward, and they're scared to death to cross Democratic operatives. But meanwhile, as Donald Trump's 2024 momentum grows, Democrats are just that much more obsessed with trying to destroy him any way they can, and by all means necessary. But as a recent report in the Federalist lays out, all of these bizarre Get Trump cases are just as weak as Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's case. For example, in the January 6th investigation, the 45th president's remarks were constitutionally protected speech, protected by the First Amendment, and not once was there ever any call for violence. And in the classified document saga, the search warrant to raid Mar-a-Lago actually relied on the Espionage Act. And here's why that is important. The Espionage Act doesn't actually prohibit the retention of classified documents, adding another legal hurdle for the special counsel. And down in Fulton County, the case there hinges on the false belief that Donald Trump asked the Georgia Secretary of State to find him votes. But a transcript of the call shows that he did no such thing. So it's all just more evidence that Democrats are desperate as ever to protect Joe Biden and try to defeat and destroy Donald Trump. And not through an election, but through a corrupt justice system. And here for reaction to this and so much more, Just the News founder and author of the fantastic new book, Hidden Headlines, John Solomon, joins us on the program once again, along with former director of national intelligence and founder of Fix California, Rick Grenell, also former ambassador to Germany. He's a guy with a lot of jobs. So fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being back on the show. We launched with y'all, so this is sort of nostalgic, right? We're back together. Reunited. All right, John, I'm going to start with you. You have a recent report about House Oversight Chair James Comer's, concerns about the DOJ's efforts to narrowly tailor the probe and protect the Bidens. What can you tell us about that, and how concerned should we be?
Well, when you look at the reports right now, Hunter Biden's facing charges for some small tax violations from like 2018 forward, but sitting on the laptop and sitting in plain view of the American people are emails from his business partners and his lawyers telling him you didn't pay taxes on $400,000 of income to that corrupt Ukrainian company known as Burisma. And a lot of lawmakers are saying, listen, if that's sitting in plain open and you can see that there's a tax evasion case here, why isn't that on the table currently with the prosecutors? And one of the concerns is maybe this Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, allowed the statute of limitations to expire on those sort of things so the Biden family wouldn't have to answer to China, Ukraine, or Russia money like Hunter was chasing back in 2014, 15, and 16.
Unbelievable. So, Rick, to follow up on that, what do you make of this investigation? It's been going on for years, yet we still aren't seeing, much action in terms of a turnaround to actually get to the drill down to the facts, to the evidence, to make sure that someone is held accountable for their misdeeds and wrongdoing. What the hell is going on inside the DOJ?
Well, look, this past weekend we saw 10,000 elites dressed in tuxes in Washington, D.C. celebrating Joe Biden. I spent the weekend at Stagecoach with 90,000 patriots, where the number one reaction from the crowd was when Brooks and Dunn celebrated America and their song Only in America. So I think my point is we've got two different worlds going on. What's happening in Washington, D.C. is total chaos. I mean, you look at the weaponization of government, everybody sees, everyone outside of Washington, D.C. can see that Hunter Biden is painting some phony pictures and getting paid massive amounts of money, but they're raiding Donald Trump's wife's closet. I mean, what have we become? And only outside of Washington, D.C. do people see this as very stark, as saying, we have to have Donald Trump back. I mean, when I was at Stagecoach, you couldn't walk 5 feet without seeing a T-shirt or a sign that was pro-Trump or anti-Biden. The real America, people outside of Washington, D.C. are not caught up into this constant legal battle. They're just out to get him. It's clear. They just want to get Donald Trump, no matter what it's going to take. They're going to try to make up stuff. They're going to keep raiding him. And here's the lesson, Kimberly, for other Republicans. It doesn't matter who comes next. This is the Democrats' plan. A future President Ted Cruz, future President Josh Hawley, future President whomever, put that person there. Their home is going to be raided. They're going to be impeached. They're going to have to be dealing with a Supreme Court that's adding Supreme Court justices, because these people just want power. And we need to recognize they will do anything to keep power. Manipulate an election, go after Donald Trump. They are trying to keep power. And guess what? We see a lot of dictators around the world that are really envious of the ways of Washington these days.
It's really true. It's such a fair and an honest point, and one that every American should be very concerned about. And overall, you have this whole weaponization of all of our governmental institutions, and a lot of people, we want to believe in the IRS, we want to believe in the FBI and the DOJ, and make sure that actually justice is fair, justice is blind, and they investigate the people that they should be checking out, John. But and I want to talk to you a little bit about this IRS whistleblower who says he has evidence that the investigation is being mishandled. These whistleblowers are very important because they have the courage, and the tenacity to come forward despite the fact that there are tremendous odds against them. Can you update us on what we might soon be hearing as it relates to the IRS?
Yeah, absolutely. So Congress accepted his whistleblower complaint, which means he's now able to convey information that normally would be protected by IRS tax privacy laws. Now he can tell them what he knows about the Hunter Biden case. Based on my reporting, what he's going to tell them is that the two political appointees of the Biden Justice Department blocked career officials from bringing criminal tax charges against Hunter Biden for the last several months, may have allowed those statute of limitations to expire, and that the actions inside the Justice Department directly contradict the testimony of Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, who just a few short weeks ago said prosecutors can bring these charges, there's no political interference. That whistleblower says that is simply not true, and he knows he was supervising the IRS agents in this case.
Rick, let's get your reaction to that.
I mean, look, my reaction is that, when I was running the intelligence agencies or working at the State Department for 12 years, I mean, if a Trump appointee used the wrong bathroom, there would be an IG investigation. I can't tell you how
Literally.
many of my emails have been leaked out or given out. Within 6 months of me leaving the State Department, all these left-wing newspapers requested through FOIA all of my emails, and they got almost all of them. I just had last week a notification, 79 more documents from my days in government have now been released to the public. And so this is a two-tier justice system. The Trump people, conservatives, Republicans, they have the bureaucracy that goes after them. And we there's really not much we can do about it because they weaponize every tool of government. We are scrutinized beyond anything that any Democratic appointee gets. And this is, how countries fall. And I really believe this. I'm not just saying this to be dramatic, but I believe that when countries begin to not have blind justice, when they begin to go after their political enemies, that is how countries implode. And we are not promised to be the greatest country in the history of the world forever. Ronald Reagan warned every single generation, you have to fight for your freedom. And I fear that we don't have enough young people who are fighting against government and big tech and corporations. We've got to fight against the big man because they're trying to control us.
It's totally true. Big government, they say big government sucks, right? That's what they say. And the tyranny of a big government, it's definitely something to be very concerned about. And I think a lot of this is really amounting and tantamount to election interference to try to affect the outcome of the 2024 election, to persecute Donald Trump, to make sure that he has the taint of investigation, and has that cloud of investigation, John, surrounding him, hanging over him, whether it's Fulton County, whether it's Manhattan, DA Alvin Bragg, frivolous lawsuits that have been brought forward across multiple venues.
Yeah, listen, the ambassador mentioned the White House prom this weekend where all the 10,000 media elites, social media elites, Biden elites, and intelligence elites gathered to celebrate themselves. It was that conglomerate of people that interfered in our election in 2020 in one of the most significant ways. They deprived the American people from knowing that the Hunter Biden laptop and the story of influence peddling that I started in 2019 at the Hill, that it was a true story. They deprived the American people of Joe Biden getting the honest job interview the American people had. Why? Because a guy named Mike Morrell, former CIA director, and Tony Blinken, now the Secretary of State, worked with the Biden campaign to concoct a fake letter to scare us off from that laptop. The greatest intrusion in American election history from spies came from American spies, and those people were celebrating themselves on Saturday night at the White House dinner.
Can I add one point to that?
Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
John makes a very good point here, and it's really disturbing because you go look at the former deputy at the CIA, Mike Morrell's testimony. He walks very carefully, and he says that Blinken is the one who approached him. Now, when Blinken was pushed on this, he said, well, it wasn't my idea. Well, we're not quite saying that it wasn't your idea or it was your idea. What we're saying is you were involved. And when you're on the campaign and you're the former deputy national security advisor for Barack Obama on the Biden campaign, and you start calling people saying, hey, I just saw this report in the Washington Post, which, by the way, they put there. They're the ones who pitched the story, but they drop back and they say, oh, look at this story in the Washington Post that is saying that Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. I'm concerned about this. Are you? We know how campaigns work. It doesn't have to be your idea for a letter, but you certainly are using your position to push on this issue. And I'm sorry, but we've got to have reporters at the State Department who are pushing back on Anthony Blinken and not letting them get away with one simple answer, which is, wasn't my idea. Oh, okay, well, let's move on to the next topic. No, it's the Secretary of State who absolutely interfered in an election. What is he supposed to say to Turkey, who has an election on May 14th? Or Albania, that has local elections on May 14th?
Let me help you fix it.
What do you say to these people who are going to look at us and say, look at the Americans, they did election interference?
And it's what we accuse everyone else of, but it's happening here at home. So you have no credibility. How can that person be in a position as important as, Secretary of State? I mean, to me, it really begs the question. I'm just wondering, though, John, is what's going to happen? What are going to be the repercussions? Are we going to see anything come out of this? Because it's not like speculation. It's not partisan, politics and rhetoric designed to be bombastic or filled with hyperbole. This is facts and evidence.
Listen, the ambassador did something great for our country back in the summer and spring of 2020. He exposed the earlier intrusion in our election called Russia collusion. Very few people paid a penalty as a result of those stunning documents that Rick and others made available, John Ratcliffe after him. There was clear intrusion in 2016 election, no consequence. By the way, Mike Morell, the guy who writes the 2020 letter, in 2016, he's the first guy to suggest in public that Donald Trump is a Russian agent recruited by Vladimir Putin. He used the words recruited. No penalty for him. I fear that we're entering into a similar thing. House Republicans say, hey, we're going to defund these guys. They're not going to get a security clearance. They won't be able to get any future federal contracts. I don't think that's enough for the American people. They were deprived of an honest and fair election by having this debate cut off. And I don't think we're going to see the sort of accountability, even though what Ambassador Grenell exposed back in the summer 20 warranted lots more accountability than what we got.
Well, it's really true. I know who I want for Secretary of State. He's sitting right there on the screen, Rick Grenell. But that's the thing. We need people to take action and be responsible, because what happens is they do these things. They get caught after, but they don't care because the damage is done. It's all very timely, and it's specifically geared to interfere and affect the outcome. They're very good at doing that. And that's why people get frustrated and saying, hey, what are we going to do this time to make it different so that we don't have the same, flawed outcome? But real quick, I want to talk about the border because this has me up in arms. And John, shifting gears on that real quick, and I'll get Rick to weigh in as well. There's a story on Just the News on your publication that nearly 9 in 10 Americans, to me this is a very significant statistic, hold Biden responsible for the border crisis. And we're talking about child trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking across, a fentanyl crisis. This seems like a growing problem for the White House, but don't worry, Kamala is in charge, and they don't even want to call it a crisis, but that's exactly what it is. Do you expect that they're actually going to have to pivot and make any kind of policy changes in the weeks or the months ahead going up into this election?
They're starting to, because the polling numbers are starting to affect their outlook, and that's the only reason Joe Biden would act on this. Otherwise, he's glad to remake the country with an illegal surge of migrants into this country. Yes, they're definitely starting to see this. They're starting to change their rhetorics. The other day, Mayorkas actually used this colorfully funny but absolutely insulting term. We have irregular migration at the border. No, we don't. We have illegal migration at the border, Mr. Secretary. But they're changing their rhetoric a little bit, right?
Yeah, they're
going to start to
normalize
slow
it.
this down. Yeah, that's right. But they're going to try to slow it down a little bit because the polling shows it. But unless Republicans use the power of the purse and really shut this down, they're going to get another 1.5 or 2 years of inflow of illegal migrants and really change the demographics of this country for a very long time.
And so, Ambassador, talk to me about the national security implications of this, because it's not just about, a porous border with drugs and sex and child trafficking, but this is a national security concern as well.
Look, I'm working with the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulo's group, and we have exposed through FOIA the fact that the Border Patrol Agency knew that we had terrorists coming across the border, not just any terrorists, but terrorists who are on the watch list. We know that they came across the border, and when the local group exposed it and said, wow, we've just found these individuals who are on the terrorist watch list, DOJ shut it down, deleted it from the website, chastised the individuals for announcing this. They don't want transparency. John did a good job of talking about the need for transparency, and I think we should all be very clear, and we should say it consistently. Transparency is not political or partisan. It is what the American public demands of Washington, D.C., and it's not what we're getting.
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's not a bipartisan issue whatsoever. Every American should be concerned about it. It's happening now. It can happen to the other side, too. So it's like, wake up. John, we continue to see a lack of interest in some of these big stories, but I think in part because the mainstream media, refuses to cover it. That's why it's important. Have shows like this and, podcasts and get the news out there so you don't get canceled like we saw what happened. And, they try to control everybody like we saw with our good friend, Tucker and Fox News. Right. But you've written an incredible new book out called Hidden Headlines, and it focused on this theme. Tell us a little bit about it and where people can get it.
It's such an important thing. It comes from bravebooks.us, so a great new publisher trying to supplant Scholastica and all the woke publishers that get books into our schools and libraries today. The ambassador said something before, young people didn't seem to care about all the censorship, and that's right, and I figured out why. After about 2 years of looking into it, I realized schools are not teaching the First Amendment was first for a reason. They're not teaching the Bill of Rights. They're not giving people civics lessons. They're spending most of their time trying to denigrate American history. So 2 generations of kids came out of school unaware that the First Amendment was first, and so they accept censorship. I want to take a book, target the next generation, young children, give them a fun story about some animals. My son's hamster's in it. He plays a newspaper publisher. Yes, Chunk the hamster makes a cameo.
He probably does a better job than some of these newspaper publishers today, let me tell you.
He gets the news out at the end of the story, even though the tubes are clogged, which were social media. But I wanted to give parents and grandparents an opportunity to tell their children the First Amendment was first. Our founding fathers wanted free speech to be the first right recognized, because you couldn't have a constitutional republic without it. And we give some fun lessons, a great story. A big thank you to Brave Books for making this such a beautiful book, taking the idea and running with it. But I want to leave it behind as a legacy for parents and grandparents to teach your children what their educators in school might be ignoring.
Well, good for you and God bless, because otherwise there's too much indoctrination going on at schools, and then everybody, gather around for like drag queen recess. That's what's happening around here. So we're glad that you're doing something positive for the kids out there, next generation. And Rick, this is really exciting. You have a letter in President Trump's new book, Letters to Trump, out by Winning Team Publishing. Talk about your letter and what it means to you to be in this cool book.
Well, my letter was dated on New Year's Eve, right? So I wrote it on New Year's Eve, and it was that time when you're feeling nostalgic about what's next. People create lists of, what I want to accomplish in the next year. And I was just thinking to myself that we got to thank President Trump for taking the hits. We've got to recognize that he did this incredible thing of creating world peace, literally world peace, and an economy that was soaring. And so I took the opportunity to thank him for really making America a great country, and for bringing back common sense, and for encouraging him to keep taking the hits and to come back, and that we needed him and that the American people stood behind him. So I wrote this letter, and lo and behold, it made it into the book with, Oprah and Princess Diana and all these other people. I'm incredibly humbled by it, but it's pretty exciting.
Well, people really love it. Obviously, I know, Don and stuff had a role in doing it as well, and Sergio. But anyway, I think it's fantastic. What an honor to be in such an important book. But now it just brings you back to, you know what? It's always nice to write a nice handwritten letter or a note, right? To give it historical.
Yeah.
I love it.
I try to do it regularly.
Exactly. John and then Rick, I'll give you each a final word, thoughts out there to the American people of what we've got coming ahead.
I think the ambassador said it best. We can't stand still. We can't stand silent anymore. We can't let the left own the narrative until it's too late and the action is over. People have to step into the void. Even if you're not political, this is the time in life to step in the void to save this country.
And I'll just add that we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Our forefathers were very smart. As John said, they first gave you the right to say anything you want, and then secondly, they said you better get a gun.
All right, well, fantastic. So, and I think you can get the books. Your book, John, what is it, Brave Books? Can you?
Bravebooks.us, yes, bravebooks.us.
Okay, perfect, and they can go to there. And Rick, for the Winning Team Publishing one, it's winningteampublishing.com, something like that, right? You can get a copy of that.
45books.com.
And 45books.com. Okay, perfect. Fantastic. Thank you both for being here on the program. We look forward to having you on. Both brave Americans, fearless indeed, and they got the brains, all right?
All the best.
Thank you. All right, be well. And make sure you like and subscribe down below so you never miss an episode of the Kimberly Guilfoyle Show. You've got to download the app and then subscribe to the channel, KG for free, basically, and then turn on notifications and hit like if you enjoy that and having great guests on like we did. But first, I'm so excited to tell you about one of our newer sponsors, Cozy Earth, offering you the softest, most luxurious, and responsibly sourced bedding in the world, okay? And I am a Cozy Earth customer, a longtime customer. All my girlfriends are too. I love their stuff. I have the blankets made out of bamboo. It's so soft. You have no idea. Everyone fights over the dogs, the kids, Don Jr. And with Mother's Day right around the corner, there's no better time than now to bring Cozy Earth bedding and loungewear into your home. So moms deserve the best. Do we all agree on that? Yes. So this Mother's Day, give her super soft, luxurious, designer preferred bedding from Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth crafts luxury goods that transform your style, and the bedding is temperature regulating so you sleep just right. It is literally on our bed. We have these sheets. They're fantastic. They keep just the right temperature. Don't you hate it when you get like a hot bed and you got to kick a leg out and da-da-da-da? You know, then shared a bed with Don Jr. He's like a big guy and like hairy, so it can get hot in there. So you have to have the Cozy Earth sheets, I'm telling you. All right, so I have been a long time Cozy Earth customer, as I said, so you really can't beat the quality as well. And Cozy Earth even offers a 100-night sleep trial. So you can sleep on it, wash it, try it out however you'd like. And if you're not completely satisfied, send it back for a full refund. I think that's a big deal. That's a company that stands by its product. And right now, Cozy Earth is having a huge Mother's Day sale. Huge. Save up to 35% off with promo code Kimberly. That's Kimberly at CozyEarth.com. That's CozyEarth.com, promo code Kimberly. And then you can write me about it. I think you're going to thank me. It's very cool. And before we get to our interview with Congressman Matt Gaetz, one of my truly favorite human beings of all time, I want to bring you a special message from Patriot Lifestyle where you can save more and spend less on a whole host of different benefits, from non-insurance healthcare benefits to savings on travel, identity theft, legal services, and even pet care for your little furry friends. Take a look. Kimberly Guilfoyle. We've commissioned a lifestyle benefit program for our America First Patriots, Patriot Lifestyle. This program includes identity theft protection. And as a former prosecutor, I know that identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America. You also have free and discounted legal services, roadside assistance, travel discounts, cashback rewards while shopping on the internet, and our newest service, Pet Assure. Right, Mario and Luigi? Where you receive discounts at veterinarians across the country and pet supply stores. Patriot Lifestyle covers you, your family, and your furry friends for less than $1 a day. Follow the link and please sign up to get your Patriot Lifestyle started. Oh my God, I love Mario and Luigi. How cute are they, right? Those are our dogs. They're not actors, although. So we're going to have even more to tell you about Patriot Lifestyle in the coming days and weeks. It's an extraordinary value and will totally improve your life. And now we turn overseas, where Congressman Matt Gaetz has introduced a resolution that made it out of the House Foreign Affairs Committee last week, which would audit the Biden administration's military assistance to Ukraine. The bill's text also has a provision to require the Pentagon to describe to Congress documents relating to any U.S. special forces on the ground in Ukraine. You see the articles there. And here to talk about that and much more, Florida Congressman and the host of Firebrand on Rumble, Matt Gaetz. Great to have you with us, Congressman. You have been very busy, my friend, keeping them all honest. So we're super happy. We've been chasing you down. Okay, but I finally caught up to you to get you on, so we're really excited. Thank you for spending the time with us today. Tell us more about this new resolution concerning Ukraine and what would it accomplish?
Well, let me be clear. I would not be in Ukraine if I were the United States. I think that the mission set for us is unclear. I think the end state continues to change. Now, all of a sudden, we're risking World War III over which person gets to run Crimea, which is not something anybody thought we would be at war over. I've also introduced the Ukraine fatigue resolution. That has not gotten a hearing yet. I hope it will. But I hold the view that America should not be afraid of broken Russian tanks in Europe. Instead, America should be worried about great power competition. And I don't think the message we're sending to China is that by toiling away in Ukraine, we're somehow a stronger nation. I think we're showing that we're allowing ourselves to be the world's police force and the world's piggy bank, particularly Europe's. True. This war in Ukraine is awful. I want it to end immediately, and it would end any time the European democracies wanted it to. but they are beholden to cheap Russian gas. And so they only do what they have to do at the prodding of the U.S., and that is really what is elongating this. So regardless of how people view about the broader conflict, and this way I disagree with Speaker McCarthy's recent statements where he talked about the need to have more and more aid for Ukraine. That's an area where we have a difference of opinion. But regardless of which opinion you hold on that front, I think everyone can agree that we want to know what the plan is from the Biden administration. We want to know where the weapons have gone, where the people are, and if we can ensure compliance with U.S. law, I think that would create greater comfort with what we've already done, though I think it has been far too much and it should come to an end.
Yeah, and so you've been getting some pushback on this. Democrat House lawmaker Kathy Manning called this a gift to Putin. What's your response to that?
Well, I've been sanctioned by Vladimir Putin. I don't know if Congresswoman Beatty has. I've been sanctioned by name. So it would be quite the gift. That's the gift Putin gave to me, a personal sanction. The only St. Petersburg I can go to is in Florida, and actually that's quite all right by me. But it's not a gift to Putin. It's a gift to the American taxpayer, Kimberly. We have problems here at home, something that Rumble viewers know well, because I know when they leave comments on my show and yours that they're frequently on my side on this issue. And by the way, we're going to be simul-streaming this out on my platform. And so if you're one of my subscribers, you better subscribe to Kimberly Guilfoyle and turn your notifications on, because this is where some of the best action is happening regarding discussion of policy and politics. But you're right, Kimberly. There is this divergence of opinion, and it's not just Republican versus Democrat. Oftentimes on the war powers resolutions and Ukraine resolutions I've been putting forward, it's actually the populist left and the populist right working against an establishment in the middle that I think has been corrupted by some bad influences in Washington.
You know, and I want to dive a little deeper into this war in Ukraine, because it's very disturbing, like you said, that it's still going on. I want it to end immediately as well. What else do you think the American people need to understand about the war in Ukraine, just how much we're spending on it, like, you know, with beating the U.S. like a piggy bank, like you said, and, you know, really where is this, you know, money going and to what end?
Well, over $100 billion is the commitment that has been made. More than half of that has been drawn down already. And I think people should note the questions that I asked the Inspector General of the Department of Defense. I asked him, you know, what is it that you could tell us about full compliance with U.S. law regarding the materiel that's been sent into conflict? And he could not say that our laws had been followed with all of the materiel that we have sent there. And that is a very telling response that the American people should take note of. I also worry about the decrease to our stockpiles. And those stockpiles aren't for us to just have warehoused to admire. Our stockpiles are a feature of our deterrence. And when you draw down on them to this extent for this type of a conflict, then that weakens our deterrence. And we've also put pressure on Korea and other nations to draw down on their stockpiles for this fight. Sometimes the way you make the fight go longer isn't sending more and more weapons into the fight. And meanwhile, we've seen officials and officials' spouses come away with huge sums of cash. I mean, there was the spouse of a senior former Ukrainian defense official who was caught at the border, and she had more than $10 million in what would have been U.S. cash equivalencies with her. And so there is a reason why Goldman Sachs deemed Ukraine the third most corrupt country in the world and the most corrupt country in Europe. It's because there is a long history of doing business that way. Now, that doesn't mean that has to be their future. Matter of fact, I'm rooting for them to make a turn toward the West. But for us to be engaged in this conflict to this extent, I think mischaracterizes and misunderstands the United States as a European power, when in fact we are an Atlantic power and a Pacific power.
Oh, absolutely. And do you sense that any of this is starting to shift as more of the evidence, information comes out, the corruption, the mishandling, of money, like you've just discussed? Are people getting it, our lawmakers, and understanding that this is a problem? Because the Biden administration seems to be falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, we have seen a unidirectional shift in public perception. Most recently, less than half the country thinks we should continue sending more and more to Ukraine. That's coming to my side of the argument. I can say in Congress, when we started, there were 3 members who voted against engaging in this type of hostility and path to war with Russia. It was Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and myself. And now that has grown to roughly 70 members who typically vote with us on these questions. Not enough to have a controlling majority in the House, but I think reflective of the direction of sentiment.
Certainly, and it's going in that direction, which is a positive sign. So I want to shift gears to another important topic, which is the crisis at our border. And what do you make of the Biden administration's plans to set up more processing centers ahead of another expected surge? Is this all like too little too late? I mean, to me, it seems like they're trying to pack everybody within the fences, too, for this next election.
Well, it's too little too late and just too wrong for the dynamic that we're seeing on the border. You know, we used to think of the border as a place that was getting overrun principally by people from these Northern Triangle countries. And that was making up, in fact, 70, 80, sometimes 90% of the immigration that we would see in particular sectors. But it's very different now, Kimberly. You go to the English as a special language classes and curriculum developments in these border towns, and it isn't Spanish that's the second language. You're getting Mandarin, you're getting various forms of African, you're getting a Haitian Creole worked into the mix, you're getting Romanian, Russian. It's more like the United Nations down at our border right now than a meeting of Northern Triangle expatriates. And so just setting up those processing centers there, I think, ignores what we're being told from Border Patrol. I also found this interesting, and you're not seeing a lot on the mainstream media, but Border Patrol in the Yuma sector told me that 9 out of every 10 groups that are large groups have Chinese in the group. And so we don't know if these are people fleeing communism, if there are spies put into those groups. We know that as a modus operandi, China does seed into movements of people, their intelligence operatives. And so we have to have a far more aggressive approach to a broken southern border than opening up a few more processing plants in the mountains and in the jungle. We need a secure border. We need internal enforcement of our immigration laws, and we need to reform the asylum process, because right now the asylum loophole is big enough to run the whole caravan through, and that's not a system that is worthy of the true asylum seekers who shouldn't have their jurisprudence clogged with all these folks who just rush across the border, indicate they're in fear, and then all of a sudden all of our systems are broken and our country is changed forever.
I think it's such a very important and very dangerous issue that if we're not going to pay attention to it, because from a national security perspective, I mean, in a porous border, I mean, path of least resistance, you're going to have people coming in, assets from all over the world. They're going to try and do us harm, set us up from another 9/11 situation. It's very disturbing to me. One, yes, the sex trafficking, the fentanyl coming over to poison us, and now we have people from all different countries coming in. Wouldn't you, if you were a terrorist and you're someone that wanted to do harm to the United States of America, come right over that southern border to get in? Isn't that the easiest way to do it? It's so obvious to me.
Sure. We've already caught dozens who are on the terrorist watch list. And of course, it's the ones you don't catch that you're most worried about. But here's what I think the media mischaracterizes quite frequently. This is not just incompetence. This is on purpose. This is not an unsolvable problem. If we wanted to secure the border, we could. Go into any casino in the entire United States. You will see security. It can be done. And President Trump had us well on our way there. Hundreds of miles of border that was now secure with a wall, an asylum process that was reformed, Remain in Mexico, Title 42. And now we need to use those Trump-era authorities again. We don't have to reinvent the wheel or the wall, as a matter of fact. We just need to keep building the wall, implement the Trump policies, and the fact that they're not doing it shows that it is malicious, that the pain is the point. And I am disappointed to report to you, I don't think we'd have the votes to get an impeachment of Mayorkas out of the House Judiciary Committee right now. And we should be able to, and he deserves impeachment, but there are still too many of my colleagues, I fear, who don't believe that the impeachment tool is appropriate for this use case. And I would ask them, what are you waiting for? What has to happen at the border for us to impeach this person? because that is how history should define him. What advice would you give me, Kimberly, about how to get these people on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to use the power of the purse. I'm just thinking of all the different tools and resources that, Congress has, the power of subpoena, the power of the purse to be able to try to effectuate some positive outcome here and hold some accountability. Obviously, you guys are doing that with the hearings. Jim Jordan and I'll be doing a great job, with the weaponizations committee. So there's a lot of positive things that I think are happening here. But, I agree with you. The tools are already in place. It's the people in charge that are refusing deliberately. This isn't a case of incompetence. This is intentional conduct by the Biden administration that is making America less safe. And when you have people in like Mayorkas, they are doing a great disservice to this country. They're not keeping this country safe. They don't care about borders. They care about using terms like amnesty and asylum so that they can affect elections and that they can get people in. And they do not care whether or not these people are going to do us great harm in this country. And that's why elections matter. And we see the difference now with even being able to take over Congress and also having a tough position to make sure that the leadership in Congress is going to be responsible to the constituency, to the American people, and actually get something done. Too many times we've had majorities before, and you know this, Congressman, where we didn't get anything done. And we looked in the mirror and we were the same as the other side. Deep state, swamp, entrenched, establishment class, and not actually getting the real work done that these people need in this country, the transparency and the strong leadership and the wherewithal to hold and stick to your guns when the votes matter. I mean, I know you do that. I'm preaching to the choir with you, but I think this is, so important. And that's why we got to win in 2024. Okay. We have to have strong, robust leadership in Congress. We have to have strong leadership, not weak-kneed, in the Senate and control that there. And we need to take back the White House and then don't squander the opportunities once we have that.
I think you've given the correct diagnosis, but it begs the question, why? Why does it feel that way to us sometimes when even when we have power, we don't use it effectively so that the lives of the people we serve are better and more successful and more fruitful? And I fear that is because too often, both political parties in Washington, D.C. are working for the same lobbyists and the same special interests. And it's why I don't take any campaign donations from any lobbyists or any PACs of any kind. And that is because I want the American people to know that I serve them and them alone. And of course, there will be issues upon which we disagree, but you just laid out the stakes of this battle, the surrender of our country, the loss of our freedoms and our liberties, somehow becoming empire builders in deserts and lands far away while veterans are sleeping homeless on our streets here in our country.
Yes, and
So
22
a
veteran
serious
suicides
nation.
a day. They fight for us, they come back,
Indeed.
and they have so many mental and physical, health issues, and, we turn a blind eye, but let's send some more weapons and let's send some more cash to Ukraine.
No, this is a great country. This evening, I'm going to be going to encourage young people to sign up for our military academies and to seek a nomination and an appointment. And we never want to act as though that type of expression of patriotism is not something we cherish deeply, but it imposes on the leaders an obligation to be more sensible and rational and to make sound judgments about what conflicts are worthy of spilling America's greatest treasure, which is the blood of our bravest patriots. I know you do a lot of outside charity work for groups that support our veterans, our active duty special operators who go deep into the fight. But that decision-making process in Washington has to get better. Just this past week, Kimberly, I brought a resolution to withdraw U.S. troops who were in Somalia. And I brought that resolution because President Trump removed U.S. troops from Somalia. President Biden has put them back in. Yeah. Now they are in harm's way. There's not a clear mission. I could only get 102 members of Congress to vote with me on that. But it shows that we haven't really turned the corner yet with the decision makers to be worthy of those great troops and veterans.
Well, you are a fantastic representative. I mean this from the bottom of my heart so sincerely for what you do for the veterans, for the active duty men and women that serve this great, incredible, courageous country. And I know so much of your constituency there, in Florida are so many military families and veterans. So you honor them well and don't ever give up fighting. I know even if you're the only one standing on a certain issue, you continue to do so. And if you're the only one standing for us, I like our odds.
Amen. Thank you, Kimberly.
All right, and thank you so much again, Congressman Gaetz, for being on the program. You got to follow him too on Rumble. He's got a fantastic show, Firebrand. So for both of us here, you can turn on notifications, download the app, follow our channels, and hit the like button if you like it. We look forward to having you on many more times, my great friend, and give my love to Ginger.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Kimberly. You're the best.
All right, take care. And much more to come, but I want to make sure I thank our brave sponsors like Goldco. Look, you saw the news earlier today about the failure of First Republic Bank, which was seized by regulators and sold to JP Morgan Chase. You see what's going on. And now more than ever, it's important to diversify your portfolio. And gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. We see all the economic warning signs, and I want you to be prepared. I'm prepared. I want you to be prepared. With Goldco, you can roll over your 401k or your IRA into precious metals and safeguard your savings, and you can do it tax and penalty free. From precious metals, IRAs, to direct purchases of gold and silver, Goldco has helped thousands of Americans diversify and protect their retirement savings. You be one as well. So go to kimsmetals.com to learn more. That's kimsmetals.com. They will walk you through the whole process. They have a fantastic, talented, skilled team that will help protect you and your family. And in closing tonight, America cannot afford another 6 years of Joe Biden. What we're seeing is a border in crisis, an economy on the edge, and a country in decline. And rather than actually fix the problem, Democrats would rather spend their days spewing more hate and rage against Donald Trump. The choice in the next election could not be clearer. American strength or global weakness, economic prosperity or managed decline, safety and security or chaos and lawlessness, America first or America last. And I'll say it again, the choice could not be clearer. And we'll be here to bring you all of the latest stories right here on Rumble, where we reject the false narrative and we always seek the truth. So make sure you like, a little thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel and to Don Jr., at Kimberly Guilfoyle and at Donald Trump Jr., and turn on notifications. Download the Rumble app, hit the like button, and tell all of your friends so they know exactly where to find us. And also be sure to follow me and Don across all platforms, Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram. It's been a pleasure having such talented guests on the show today. We look forward to seeing you all as well as on Thursday. And Don Jr. has a fantastic show coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on Rumble. So be sure to come back in just about an hour and 6 minutes and catch him live as well. And hop on over to Locals at kimberly.locals.com for a live Q&A. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed evening, and I'll see you right here on Rumble on Thursday.